Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 18. King Yayati regains his youth. Text number 28. Tatheti avasthite praha tathetyavasthite praha tathetyavasthite praha devayani manogatam devayani manogatam devayani manogatam Pitra dattayato yasye sanuga yatu mam anu sanuga yatu mamanu sanuga yatu mamanu tathetyavasthite praha devayani manogatam Pitra dattayato yasye sanugayatu mamanu. Tathetyavasthite praha devayani manogatam Pitra dattayato yasye anugayatu mamanu. Avasthite, the situation being settled in this way. Praha said, Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, Manogatam, her desire, Pitra, by the father, Datta, given, Yataha, to whomever, Yasye, I shall go, Sa Anuga, with her friends, Yatu, shall go, Mam Anu, as my follower or servant. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. After hearing Shukracharya's request, Vrishaparva agreed to fulfill Devayani's desire and he awaited her words. Devayani then expressed her desire as follows. Whenever I marry by the order of my father, my friend Sharmishtha must go with me as my maidservant along with her friends. Please repeat this translation. After hearing Shukracharya's request, Vrishapari then expressed her desire as follows. Whenever I marry by the order of my father, my friend Sharmishtha must go with me as my maidservant along with her friends. I'll read by myself. Pitra datta deva sanuga tada swanam tat sankatam vikshya tadarthasya cha gauravam devayanim paryacharat stri sahasrena dhasavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Vrishaparva wisely thought that Shukracharya's displeasure would bring danger and that his pleasure would bring material gain. Therefore, he carried out Shukracharya's order and served him like a slave. He gave his daughter Sharmishtha to Devayani, and Sharmishtha served Devayani like a slave, along with thousands of other women. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the beginning of these affairs concerning Sharmishtha and Devayani, we saw that Sharmishtha had many friends. Now these friends became maidservants of Devayani. When a girl married a Kshatriya king, it was customary for all her girlfriends to go with her to her husband's house. For instance, when Vasudeva married Devaki, the mother of Krishna, he married all 6 of her sisters. And she also had many friends who accompanied her. A king would maintain not only his wife, but also the many friends and maidservants of his wife. Some of these maidservants would become pregnant and give birth to children. Such children were accepted as Dasi Putra, the sons of the maidservants, and the king would maintain them. The female population is always greater than the male, but since a woman needs to be protected by a man, the king would maintain many girls who acted either as friends or as maidservants of the queen. In the history of Krishna's household life, we find that Krishna married 16,108 wives. These were not maidservants, but direct queens, and Krishna expanded himself into 16,108 forms to maintain different establishments for each and every wife. This is not possible for ordinary men. Therefore, although the kings had to maintain many servants and wives, not all of them had different establishments. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here is a description of an entire episode on one powerful king, King Yayati. This episode is very instructive for us in several ways. So all through the description of the details of the events in King Yayati's life, we learn so many nice lessons. So Srimad Bhagavatam is full of such lessons in bhakti. Bhagavata means connected with Bhagavan. Bhagavan means bhakti. So we can see the difference between a powerful Brahmana and a devotee of Krishna. A powerful Brahmana may be very learned, maybe even undergoing tapasya, may even have controlled his senses and his mind, may even be living a simple life, but the core of his heart is not yet fully purified. Now take the case of Shukracharya. He is a very powerful Brahmana, as I mentioned earlier, and it is explained in the earlier part of this chapter. He had the power to bring back dead persons to life if they had died untimely and if their body was intact. Now, in an earlier canto, it is described, even Narad Muni has that power. Narad Muni brought back the dead son of Chitraketu back to life. But Narad Muni will never use his powers for any of his personal benefit, not for his personal sense enjoyment, not for his personal satisfaction, never. Shukracharya is plainly admitting to Vrishaparva, to the king, my dear king, kindly fulfill the desire of Devayani, for she is my daughter, and in this world I cannot give her up or neglect her. He is expressing his affection for his daughter, and he says, I just cannot give up my daughter under any circumstances. A powerful Brahmana, but he has attachment for his daughter. And as a result of such attachment, what is a daughter thinking? That I have been insulted by the princess, by the king's daughter. So now it is my turn to take revenge. So Shukracharya forced this king, Vrishaparva, because it is said here, Vrishaparva wisely thought that Shukracharya's displeasure would bring danger. Vrishaparva is the king. He has to rule the kingdom. And his guru, his spiritual master, his Brahmanical advisor, Shukracharya, is very important for him. So he could not displease Shukracharya. And therefore, he simply agreed to whatever Shukracharya said. Vrishaparva agreed to fulfill Devayani's desire. Not even Shukracharya's desire, Devayani's desire, because Shukracharya is thinking, I am attached to my daughter. Whatever she wants, you simply carry out that order. So he is awaiting her words. The king of the land, he is also a powerful person. He is also principled. Otherwise, he can't rule. But still, he is awaiting the words of one puffed up young girl. And she is dictating now. What is she telling? Devayani expressed her desire in this way. Whenever I marry by the order of my father, my friend Sharmishta must go with me as my maidservant, along with her friends. So this tendency is there in the material world, in a conditioned soul, to lord over others. In the four common qualities between animals and human beings, Hitopadesha, it is said, Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maithuna. Ahara Nidra Maithuna are very simple, straightforward things. But this Bhaya, fear, as a common characteristic or quality of all conditioned souls, including animals, is that due to this fear factor, there is always some necessity or some attempt at defense measures. Defense. So, even the animals, they have their own defense system or defense method. And the human beings with developed intelligence, they are the ones who complicate this whole need for having some defense arrangement. They complicate it in so many ways. So they have elaborate arrangements for their defense. As a result, a foolish conditioned soul becomes badly entangled in this material world. What are the defense mechanism that human beings develop? Their false ego dictates that they have so many possessions, material possessions, and they have so many people with whom they have different kinds of relationships, primarily for the purpose of lording over. Primarily for the purpose of lording over. As Prabhupada many times says, a man may have a lot of wealth, and consequently, because of his wealth, he'll have so many different material possessions. But he's not just satisfied having them or even enjoying them. He wants to show off in front of others. Look at my wealth. Look at my possessions. So this Devayani, simply out of false ego, she is telling, Sharmishta must go with me as my maid servant. But not just Sharmishta alone, along with her friends, and is described here, Srila Prabhupada, no, by the verse itself. Sharmishta served Devayani like a slave along with thousands of other women. Thousands of other women. So this is actually a material disease. This is the material disease, not a material disease. This is the material disease, fundamental disease. Lauding tendency. Lauding tendency. All conditioned souls, including the exalted devatas and even the rishis who are situated in the highest modes of goodness, they all have to different degrees this lauding tendency. The earlier part of the 9th canto was described the fight that broke out between Vasishta Rishi and Vishwamitra Rishi. It is well known in Vedic history. This fight was a very, very ugly fight between them. And it went on for several hundreds or thousands of years, this fight between them. Simply because of that desire to be lording over. That's all. So in bhakti, this exact disease, which is the root cause of our material existence, is treated. Bhakti begins with surrender. Surrender means this nonsense, lauding tendency, I want to give up. And if I give it up, I am liberated immediately. My material existence is finished. No more material life. I am completely freed from material existence. Simply if I give up this lauding business. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explains this in just one verse. Naham vipro nacha narapati napi vaishyo na shudro naham varni. What is that? Na grihastho napi. What is that? What are the words? Anybody remembers? No, that last two lines I know. The second line. He says, I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya, I am not a Shudra, I am not a Brahmachari, I am not a Grihastha, I am not a Vanaprastha, no Vanastho Yatirva. Kintu prodyan nikhila paramananda purnamritabdher gopi bhartuhu padakamalayor dasa dasanu dasaha. So this is the treatment for this lauding tendency. Dasa dasanudasaha, servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Not just servant of Krishna, mind you. Servant of the servant of the servant. And here we just see the opposite. I not only want this Charmishta as my maid servant, Devayani is thinking or telling, directly ordering. But her friends also should be maid servants. So this is the root cause of material existence, this lauding tendency. And it is the very cause of enviousness, matsarata. The primary characteristic of a pure devotee is nirmatsara quality, primary quality. Bhagavatam highlights this in the beginning itself. Dharma projita kaitavo atra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. The Srimad Bhagavatam actually, it rejects all materially motivated religious systems, and it is best appreciated by pure devotees who are nirmatsara. They are completely freed from all enviousness. Such people can appreciate Bhagavatam the best. So who are they? They are the pure devotees, completely free from all envy. Why or how? Because they simply agree to be servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Any number of times, subordinate servant. Narottam Das Thakur says, Echai Goshai Jar Mui Taradas. Echai Goshai Jar Mui Taradas. I am not only servant of the 6 Goswamis, but I am the servant of that person who is a servant of those 6 Goswamis. Means he wants to be servant of the 6 Goswamis. So, this attitude of servitude, is the actual constitutional position of every living being, and is the perfect situation for all of us. So we begin with the understanding, I am Jivera Swarupoy, Krishnera Nityadas. I am eternally servant of Krishna. So if I don't desire or don't want to be servant of Krishna, then I am forced to be servant of Maya. This Prabhupada explains in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita in introduction. That, very nicely Prabhupada explains this. A living entity, in the preface he says this, a living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus perpetually one has to wander within the cycle of birth and death. Even the so-called liberated Mayavadi speculator has to undergo this process. So we have to give up this attitude of lording over. And the whole practice of sadhana bhakti is to give up this lording tendency by following these rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti. All the rules are ultimately to make us a humble servant of Krishna, not directly servant of Krishna, but servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. So, the system is that one accepts a bona fide spiritual master coming in parampara. Parampara means the spiritual master himself is a servant of his spiritual master. And parampara also means the spiritual master is also a servant. So, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And when we actually begin practicing devotional service, the first understanding is I am a servant of my spiritual master. But when we actually live in the association of like-minded devotees, then we accept to become servant of the servants of the spiritual master, the servant of the devotees. You see how the disease is treated? Because it's a deep-rooted disease. Deep-rooted disease. Sometimes it is seen, neophyte devotees, their first understanding is, okay, I want to be servant of Krishna. I want to serve Krishna. But they want to serve Krishna directly. Sometimes devotees plainly say, I don't want any intermediate person between me and Krishna. I want to directly serve Krishna. So that is again the same disease of lording over, because of which one does not want to serve anyone else other than Krishna. But Krishna is never alone. And Krishna declares that he who is considering himself as my direct servant is not my servant, is not my devotee. One who agrees to become the servant of my servant, he is my real devotee. He is my real devotee. And Krishna teaches this by himself becoming a devotee of his devotee. Krishna teaches this also. What did he do on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? He became the chariot driver of Arjuna. Arjuna is completely surrendered to Krishna. He is his devotee. But Krishna becomes his servant. Krishna becomes his servant. So, this disease of lording tendency has to be cured by becoming the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Now, sometimes people call this slave mentality or think this is slave mentality, which is never going to help us really develop our self-confidence. You see, slave mentality means one remains very, very undeveloped. But this is not exactly slave mentality the way it is understood in the material world, but it is the spiritual understanding that by acting as a servant of the servant of Krishna, I am able to better please Krishna. I am able to better serve Krishna. And Krishna's pure devotees demonstrate this. Krishna's pure devotees all demonstrate this. That is because of several reasons why we don't directly serve Krishna. First of all, Krishna is unlimited personality and we are very, very, very tiny person. How can this limited, tiny, insignificant spirit soul serve the unlimited Lord? It is impossible. Therefore, Krishna says, you serve my devotee. You serve my devotee. Then again, it is only through serving the devotee who is the expert in serving Krishna can we learn how to serve Krishna. Because Krishna is unlimited. How can the limited serve the unlimited? So you have to learn that. It is possible. So, the bona fide spiritual master who is the perfect servant of Krishna, he can teach, he can train, he can show us the way how we can serve Krishna. And moment one agrees to act, to get trained, to work as a servant of Krishna, and then also understands I cannot directly serve Krishna. I have to serve the servant of Krishna. So I agree to accept a bona fide spiritual master. So then I agree to become the servant of my spiritual master. But then again, to serve the spiritual master also, who is a pure devotee, Acharya, is not easy. Because Acharya is the empowered servant of Krishna. It is not, he is not like another ordinary person. He is not like an ordinary master. So he is empowered. So he can engage any number of persons in devotional service. And we see this in the life of the Acharyas. All the Acharyas. They preach to so many people. They preach to so many people. And even when they were having so many disciples or so many followers, there was a personal connect between the Acharya and each of the disciples and followers. That's not possible for an ordinary person. That's not possible for any ordinary devotee. So only an empowered acharya can accept service, can direct many devotees, can help so many conditioned souls to accept devotional service and guide them to become nice devotees of Krishna. How Prabhupada engaged so many thousands and thousands of disciples. You see? So, servant of the servant, several times removed. Even in serving Vaishnavas, the more the Vaishnava is empowered, the more difficult it is to serve him directly. The more the Vaishnava is empowered. Acharyas are absolutely empowered. But the sincere followers of the Acharya, they become more and more empowered as they increase their service to the Acharya. They become more and more empowered. Then it becomes difficult even for just neophyte devotees to even serve such empowered Vaishnavas. So then they have to agree to become servant of the empowered devotee. So ultimately, this disease has to be cured. And the only remedy actually is to accept this subordinate position. I am the lowest. And Narottam Das Thakur teaches this in his song. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Tuma Bina Ke Dayalo Jagat Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tavavatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Na Pai Beara. There is no one who is more fallen than me. I am the lowest. This attitude is the perfect cure for our lauding tendency. This attitude. Make very quick advancement if you have this attitude. But this does not give a license for other devotees. If somebody sees, oh, here is a humble devotee, then I can give him some instructions, I can take his help, I can teach him, I can direct him. That is again our own disease, which we are trying to cure. In this process, say, oh, very nice devotee, let me engage him, let me direct him, let me guide him. No. We should not be very eager. Even among Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pure devotees, we see they are not very eager to take many disciples. One particular Acharya, Lokanath Goswami, he didn't want to accept any disciples. But that does not mean he was not willing to guide anybody or give association. No. He didn't want to accept service from another Vaishnava. Even Gokisharas Babaji Maharaj also. At first he refused to accept Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as his disciples. He refused. Then later on he explains, I don't want to take service from anybody. So this is the mood of servitorship. Krishna's devotees never want to take service from anybody. Pure devotees. They want to give service. So even the Guru accepts disciples. He is accepting in the mood, I want to serve this conditioned soul by helping him become Krishna conscious, by guiding him or her, by accepting on behalf of Krishna. The Guru accepts anything the disciple offers on behalf of Krishna, and Guru does not keep anything for himself. Everything he passes on to the Supreme Lord. 100%. So that's the pure devotee, Acharya. So he never will get affected by the disciples' surrender, service, anything. So when we are conditioned, we should be very careful. Unless it's our authorized, assigned service to give some guidance or some kind of help to another devotee in terms of guiding, we should never try to guide others. Because that is also the lording tendency. I am the master, you are my servant. This is seen everywhere in the outside world. It's very common. They don't even know this, that they are afflicted by this disease and the disease is getting aggravated by the so-called helping others. They're helping others simply with the idea that I am the master, you are my servant. All material relationships are like that. Whereas spiritual relationship is, I am your servant. Why we address another devotee as Prabhu? Prabhupada says this. Not just saying Prabhu, but actually acting as Prabhu. You are my master, I am your servant. So this servant attitude is the perfect situation for a devotee, for an aspiring devotee. Devotees are actually servants, always. But those who are aspiring to be devotees, they should always have this mood. And then their spiritual life is perfect. Very rapid advancement you can make. You can quickly come to the topmost platform of Krishna consciousness simply by this attitude. I'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.